about a mystic that lived in the 1600s, Jean Guyon, and about an amazing journey she went through and how that kind of touches and fits onto John 20 as well.
I remember many years ago reading her books and just such incredible writing, and then discovering how her journey began. She was really searching and desiring an encounter with God. I think at the age of 17, 18,
Yeah.
young girl, and she went to every meeting she could, prayed as much as she could. She tried to do everything to have this encounter, and to no avail. She eventually thought, well, I must be disqualified. I'm not a minister. I'm not this. I'm not that. And despondent at the side of the road, this wise old priest walks past, and he says to her, "Madam, why are you so downcast?" Mm-hmm. And she explains to him everything she's done, and this encounter with God is just so elusive. And he says to her, "You will never find what you are looking for if you search for it outside of yourself." Wow. And she's stunned, and she goes home, and in her small little meager kitchen, she just says, "God, have I missed you here all along?" And in that moment, she's overwhelmed by the most beautiful affirmation of God right there in her kitchen. And she goes on to write. Even she was conversing with the King of France at the time, and
that got her into trouble.
Yeah, there were many of the clergy that just thought that is just not on, and they eventually threw her into a dungeon where she spent a long time. She eventually died, actually, in a dungeon. And she writes this poem, which is just so beautiful, and roughly translated into English. It goes something along the lines of, "Those who threw me here do not know that there's one who comes through bars of steel and walls of stone. And these dungeon walls have become dear to me because you are here."
Wow.
Isn't that beautiful?
I want to encourage you, no matter what situation or circumstances you find yourself in, there's an encounter available that can make the very space you find yourself in, no matter how restricted you think it is, it can make it dear and precious, because there's a relationship, an encounter available right there. It reminds me of John 20, where again the disciples are gathered in this fear-filled little room because the religious leaders and the national leaders have just arrested and killed their leader, Jesus. And so out of fear for the Jews, they go and hide themselves. They lock the door. But there is one who comes through walls of stone. And Jesus materializes and appears to them. And the first thing he says is, "Peace, be still." You see, when we start defining ourselves and identifying ourselves by who we are against, that sets you up for torment. That sets you up for a life of fear. And Jesus breathes into them a new spirit, a new identity. And this identity is not going to be based on who we exclude, on who we are against, but on the exact opposite. He says, go. Go into all the world. Your identity is going to be found in this extravagant way of giving yourself away. There's that beautiful verse that says, "And whoever sins you forgive will be forgiven, and Then a very unfortunate translation in many of our Bible says, and whoever sin you retain will be retained. I think it's Sandra Snyder in her book, Jesus Risen in Our Midst, beautifully looks at that verse and shows that the word sin actually doesn't appear in the second half of that verse. And a better translation would be, whosever sin you forgive will be forgiven, and whoever you embrace, whoever you hold will be held. You see, people experience the forgiveness of God, not in our theories, but in your embrace. People experience the presence of God, not in your doctrines, but in the way in which you give yourself away for their benefit. And so here Jesus begins to give us a whole new identity, an identity beyond nationality. Go read Ephesians 2. The dividing walls that he breaks down are not even the walls between God and humanity, but rather between the little groups that we've created to separate ourselves from one another. And Jesus comes to show that it is enmity itself that needs to be defeated and needs to die a swift death and come to an end.
And you know, it really does start with allowing yourself to imagine a possibility greater than what you experience right here in this situation where you're at. You can experience that wide open space that includes, that goes beyond these walls, beyond these barriers. Allow yourself to be captivated by that thought that, hey, there's more to life than division, than strong opinions, divide.
We can even love our enemies.
This is not just sameness. This is a beautiful union that we can celebrate our distinction and the space between us being that area for movement to happen. Bless you all.
Bless you, friends. Bye-bye.